find it, people's attitude to the Irish people incredibly cynical. I am much more hopeful that the Irish people really care about the environment, that they'd be shocked to hear this, but they shouldn't be shocked, because purchasing carbon credits for our emissions isn't peculiarly Irish. It's an international thing, and they're purchased on the international market. And it's been happening for the last 30 years since Kyoto. It's a known fact that governments purchase their way out of the dirty environment that they create.
Yes,
and
some other countries are underusing their carbon allowance.
They buy it, and it's usually bought from countries in the developing world. But I just say this about it. It doesn't work. Market mechanisms to deal with the environment don't work. They've been buying carbon credits for the last 30 years globally, and this year the levels of CO2 in the atmosphere were higher than they've ever been historically. And another market mechanism is carbon tax on ordinary people. There's no evidence that it works, despite what the government say.
But did you not just say ordinary people in Ireland are keen to step up and do their part?
Of course they are, but they want dramatic things done, like let the government pass the bill that we have before the Dáil now, the People Before Profit bill, that says stop burning carbon fuels, stop taking them out of the ground.
And yet they put a money message
on a bill.
Immediately. Will that do
it will not do
anything
on our emissions immediately, not immediately, but it will
could do something straight away, but you don't want people to pay
holy God, can I finish what I was going to Can I finish what I was going to say? Because all you're showing is how defensive you are on this issue. Your government has ordered to stop this bill going forward. This bill should be at the committee stage now, being discussed and being amended, and you've done everything possible to stop it. And we have full support from every party except yous and the rural independents on this. Every other party, a couple that I know from Crumlin who I've been representing, he has a small pension from his job. Their house is freezing cold. They both have issues with their lungs and arthritis and all the rest. We're an ordinary working class couple. And I've got lots of people like this. They are not on fuel allowance because they're not poor enough to be on fuel allowance. Got €5 a week above the limit. They have applied for a grant to retrofit their home so that they could burn less carbon and live a better, healthier life, and their health would improve. They've been turned down by the SEAI, they've been turned down by the Minister. I appealed again last week, and I have it in black and white from yesterday. We're not making any concession on any of these. I have 5 different families lined up who are earning €5 to €7 above the limit, and the government will not listen and will not do anything to help them retrofit or come out of poverty. But they will, put a tax on their gas bill, and they will put a tax on their coal.
Okay, Brid. Michael. They're all going after their own constituencies. They're all going after their own constituencies to protect them. No one wants to do anything.
No, it's not a constituency.
We are for, and we've always said it, we're for taxing the profits of the fossil fuel and related industries, and that includes aviation. But is that enough, Brid? Just like carbon credits didn't work, no CO2 emissions came down, and we've had the highest level in the last year ever in human history. Carbon taxes have never worked. They didn't work in Norway, they don't work in British Columbia. CO2 levels come down in those countries, and it's been proven when there's a recession or a levelling out of production, not when people...
OK, sorry, I want to bring Danny in. Sorry, one second.
Just
Danny,
1 second.
No, one second. You don't believe that it changes behaviour?
I really feel a bit sad, because I know Annie from the repeal campaign. I thought she was a wonderful radical woman, and that is a conservative position to take on something so serious. And that's not to insult you, Annie. I do think you're a wonderful woman, but I'm sad to hear you taking that position, because we cannot change our behaviour unless we improve public transport, retrofit homes, shift to renewables, do all the things that are required. And if it's about punishing people, it ain't going to work. If it's about reducing emissions and providing alternatives, then I'd be all for carbon tax if they work. There's no evidence they work. They do not reduce emissions. All they do is they penalise people who can least afford it.
Well, I think if we were talking about...
Just let me finish this point. The Taoiseach has consistently said it is not a revenue-raising measure. It's to get people to change their behaviour. They cannot change their behaviour if they don't have access to frequent, decent, cheap public transport.
We've heard that point, so let's get Michael in.
We heard it, but we have to take
If you listen to what the Taoiseach has said,
been exploited by the European Union, that they have used this backstop as a mechanism to force the British hand in the negotiations. Should we be worried about the possibility that we have been exploited, and then when it comes to it, they'll insist on the border being put in place to protect the single market?
Well, from our point of view, we've never fully trusted the role played by the EU in this, and I think we're justified in not trusting them, because they haven't exactly been kind to Ireland in the past. They don't have a track record of backing us up or treating us with kid gloves or in any way decent, particularly over the bank bailout. So we've always been, cognizant that they may well sell us out, and they still may well sell us out. He makes a good point. But here's the thing, what do we do? What does the Irish government do? What do the Irish people do? And I think the big question for us is, do we assist with the implementation of a hard border, or do we insist that we're having absolutely nothing to do with it? And I think that that's the answer we should give, whether it's the Tories or whether it's the EU. We're not implementing it. If you're implementing it, you take it on your head. We are not implementing it. And in fact, I think there would be a mood across the border, both sides of it, to mobilise against anybody trying to implement a hard border.
But wouldn't we be in breach of our membership of the European Union then? Wouldn't we get the hammers of hell brought down upon us for doing a blow to the single market?
We've done this with the country when we bailed out the banks. We're afraid to breach the EU rules. What's at stake here is enormous. It's the peace, it's the security of Ireland that's at stake, and it's the potential for absolute havoc on this island. So I think we should refuse to implement their hard border, and we on the left would be working with others to mobilise a big movement against any attempt to have one in this country, because I think that's absolutely essential.
Nearly if the EU...
How the media treat Boris Johnson. He's been treated very kindly by them, and with kid gloves, with an honourable exception.
In Britain, not in Ireland.
With the honourable exception of Owen Jones, who actually talks about his record and his history and his attitude to minorities.
Sophie Ridge as well.
Max Hastings is the man is a liar,
but most of them are giving him an easy ride and presenting him as some kind of a, like you said, Churchwellian or Trumpist kind of a character. But here's the thing, he has a close relationship with the DUP, and he has said that he wants to return, as if we moved away from it, to free market capitalism in a big way. And Trump recently announced that he would work with Johnson, and he'd have to be prepared to look at the NHS. And that's why I think we need to make an appeal to the voters of the DUP in the North, because if they dismantle the NHS and try to privatise it, it's not just the voters in Britain who will suffer,
but
it's the DUP voters who will suffer.
Isn't it the case, though, that the Conservatives want to...
Because he wants to return to free market capitalism? I don't think so.
No,
I think the reason that he's popular is because he's presented as this type of a character that talks the truth and doesn't mince words. He doesn't mince words, but he's abusive towards minorities, towards gay people. He's racist in his language. He has a record of it, and he was sacked from two jobs for being a liar.
But those very aspects of him are what is appealing to the electorate currently.
I don't believe that's appealing to anybody. It may appeal to a tiny minority, but it is not appealing to the electorate. The electorate in Britain are frustrated with the carry-on of the last 4 years. They voted for Brexit.
They're largely frustrated with the left as well, and Corbyn. Danny, what do you think? You've heard
compare the way the media treat Corbyn compared to how they treat Danny, Boris Johnson.
What do you make of the character that is Boris Johnson?
You could say that about polls here. We never gauge things on one poll. You can't do that.
It's not the only poll that's ever shown he's popular. He was elected Mayor of London twice.
Corbyn was also proved to be popular. Corbyn was also...
Sorry, the guy who lost the last general election.
The media went after him like never before.
Just because you don't like a guy, you can't ignore the facts about who's popular. Some people in Canada don't like Justin Trudeau.
That's not what I'm saying.
But he's popular.
I'm talking about how the media treat one against the other.
I've seen plenty of criticism